All right, so let's talk about those 8 phrases that will destroy narcissists. So, first of all, narcissists are extremely fragile. They don't act fragile. I understand that. But they are actually very extremely fragile. In a lot of ways, they're way more scared of you than you are of them. And so, a lot of this, I just want to say at the beginning, you don't want to say these things that are going to and put yourself into a bad position. I don't want you to do anything that's going to put yourself into a position of being potentially afraid, fearful, in fear for your life, in imminent fear of harm in any possible way. So I say all of these things so that you can kind of caution yourself on the best ways to actually phrase something so that you can actually get something that you want out of the situation. Okay, so be very careful when you are saying some of these things. A lot of them I would say don't say. Some of them I would definitely say do say. And I'll kind of like delineate that out as we go forward here. Okay. So the first one is, I know that you are, and then insert like bad thing that they're doing. Like, I know you're lying. I know you're cheating. I know what you're saying isn't true. Anything that exposes them, basically. Like, if you are getting ready to expose a narcissist, you want to be very, very strategic about it. And there are times that you want to do that 100%. And that's going to be part of your leverage and part of an overall strategy that you're creating when you're going to negotiate with them. I am 100% all for ethically manipulating the manipulator and getting them to do something that you want them to do. But you have to be super careful about how and when you are going to present the information. Okay, so the first one is just anything that exposes them. All right, the next one is, I don't remember that. Basically what you're saying in this one is, I'm not paying full attention to everything that you're saying, and that's definitely going to destroy them. They want to feel at least like you are revering them, and they have your adulation, and everything that they're saying and doing you're hanging on. And so if you say something like, I don't remember that, or it's sort of a whatever to me, then that will destroy them. And by the way, kind of, we all want to feel seen, heard, and know that we matter. So some of these things are also things that might be hurtful to any of us, right? Okay, so the next one is, and this is totally a narcissist thing, and that is the I can't right now, or I don't have time for you right now. That's something that, a reasonable person will understand. If you are a busy person and, maybe you didn't have time to read that text right at that moment, or you didn't have time to, you don't have time to drop everything that you're doing and do it right for them right at that moment. But narcissists are extremely easily slighted. And, like they even hear tones, like I always say they hear tones like dogs hear whistles, like, there was no tone, like, but they think it's sarcastic and they think that there's something that you said or did. So you have to be very careful about their ego with that. And I say that because you want to be able to get what you want from them. So you want to be careful about how and when you're going to present things, and how and when you're going to say certain things. So you want to be definitely strategic about that. But if you hear that from them, that's definitely something that um, that they won't like. So you just got to be careful about the I can or whatever. But of course, have your boundaries, right? Of course, have your own boundaries. All right. So the next one is, you are a failure, or you're a loser. I'm so disappointed in you. Something like that. I mean, you can certainly say things like, you know, um, this isn't working for me. This situation isn't working for me. This conversation isn't working for me. The way you're saying that isn't working for me. Something like that. You're, the way you're coming across. But be very careful about saying things like you're a loser. That's one of those that I would highly recommend you stay away from. You don't want to put yourself into a dangerous situation, and it's not going to get what you want out of the negotiation anyway. All right. So that's that one. And the next one is you caused, like you caused bad things to happen. It's your fault. It's your responsibility, something like that. They definitely don't want to have to take responsibility for anything. If you try to get them to take responsibility for something, then it's, deny, deflect, project, all of those things. And if you've seen that, if you've seen any of these things so far, give me an I've seen it down in the comments below. And you do want to be careful, because you don't want them to come unleashing on you, and you don't want them to, have that narcissistic rage come flying out, right? So, okay, the next one is I don't believe you. And this is, where you're basically saying to them, I know you're a liar, and I see through you. I see exactly who you are. And by the way, if you do try to catch a narcissist in a lie, you definitely want to check out my video on that. I have a whole video on what happens when you try to catch a narcissist in a lie. They try to like slither their way out of that situation, right? And sometimes they can be very good at it, but sometimes they think they're better at getting away with it than they actually are. So that's the next one. The next one is just the word no. They don't want to have to be told no. They don't want to have to be told that you're not going to, do exactly what they say when they want you to do it, and all of those sorts of things, right? It's like, they want to have full control over you. They want to know that you are going to jump when they say jump, and they're going to say how high. They work very hard to have control over you. I mean, they like to have control over everything. And so they don't want to hear that word no. That's definitely a word that will destroy them. So, when you are dealing with them, especially in a negotiation setting, there are ways that you can disagree with them without actually disagreeing with them, like by saying no. I mean, you can even say things like, I agree, that's your position. I agree that that's how you feel. I agree that your offer is blah, blah, blah. Then they hear, I agree. So you can say those things without actually having to say no. I mean, you can even say things like, good point, great feedback, thanks for sharing, something like that. And, but blah, 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 blah. You don't have to physically say the word no. Okay. And the last thing that will actually destroy them, even though they treat you terribly sometimes, is the word goodbye. They don't want to see their source of narcissistic supply walking out the door, whether it's in a business relationship or a personal relationship. They do not want to see you walking out the door. So, they don't want to see the word goodbye. It's so confounding, because they treat you poorly and then wonder why you want to leave. But that is one of their biggest fears, by the way. And you want to check out my video on what their biggest fears are, is you leaving, you abandoning them. So they don't want to hear that word goodbye. So I'm going to say to you, do not put yourself in danger. Okay. Do not put yourself in danger. If you feel like you are in any kind of danger, then just leave the situation. Go call the domestic violence hotline. I will drop the number to that below. Do not put yourself in any kind of situation where you're going to feel like you are going to be in any kind of danger. So I want to make sure I say that several times. Okay, so one of the things that you can say is, you're not the center of my world, because obviously that's what narcissists want. They want to be the center of your world. They want to be the center of any world. They don't have any sense of self. I always say they're like the hollow chocolate Easter bunny. They look good on the outside. There's nothing going on the inside. They just don't have that sense of self. The worst thing that you can say is, you're not the center of my world. They need to be the center of anybody's world. So that's number one. Number two is, you can say, I need space right now. They don't want you to have space. That's why they go crazy when you say that. I mean, they can go ghosting you, but you can't do the same. I mean, they'll go dark on you for hours or days at a time and then act like you're the crazy one when you say, where did you go? What happened? But when you try to do the same, oh my gosh, the flood comes back and, there they are blowing up your phone, showing up at your house, stalking you, all those things, right? You can't say, I need space right now. That will destroy them. Here's another one that will destroy them. I'm not talking to you until you apologize. When you try to shift the dynamic, then they start to go crazy because they've been conditioning you from the beginning. They've conditioned you to see if you were going to be a good form of supply for them right from the beginning. They were testing you to see if you were going to be a good target, a good source of supply for them. And how did they do that? Well, they started off at the beginning love bombing, and then they would start to pull back. They would start to devalue. They would start to ghost. Did you stick around? Did they get away with it? That's how they started testing you to see if you were going to be a good source of supply, right? And I have other videos on that, by the way. And they'll say things to you, by the way, like, everybody else thinks this and no one else thinks the way you do. I mean, they'll pull back and say things to you to try to make you think you're the one that's crazy, but you certainly can't say things back to them like that. They'll say all sorts of horrible and vicious things to you. And I have a whole video, by the way, on their favorite catchphrases, which you can definitely check out my video on the narcissist favorite catchphrases. They all speak the same way, but you certainly can't say something to them like, you're not the only one who's been through this, because they have to feel special. They want to feel like they are special, like they are the only ones. So that's another kind of phrase that will destroy them. Anything that makes them feel like they're ordinary. They want to feel like they are extraordinary, like they are special. Anything else will destroy them. Another thing that will destroy them is if you say something like, my future doesn't include you, whether it's a business relationship or a personal relationship. I will be moving forward and it does not include you. I personally had a business relationship with a narcissist, and that narcissist, even though the situation with that person was absolutely a nightmare, that person was not happy when the situation was ending. Because, that's where the supply was coming from, right? When they see that source of supply moving along, they want to glom onto it because supply is their food. It's their lifeblood. It's their oxygen. They want to continue to glom onto any source of supply that they can. So they don't want to see that. If you are so ready to slay this and move forward and slay the rest of your life, I want you to write slay in the comments right now. Just say, I'm ready to slay. Okay? Anything that does not make them feel like they are special, that doesn't include them, that is moving forward without them, those kinds of things destroy them. And especially no, like if you say no to them, if you say goodbye to them, if you say stop contacting me, if you say, all those sorts of things, that's what's going to destroy them. But that is what you need to do in order for you to heal, in order for you to stop being triggered, in order for you to be able to move forward. Those are the types of phrases that destroy them, but allow your soul to actually start to come alive again. Because I know from personal experience and also from my experience in helping thousands of people through this, in order for you to stop this energy suck, because they are such energy vampires, they're glomming onto you to pull that energy out of you. And in order to stop that, you have to shut it down. Stop feeling guilty for them. Stop feeling like responsible for them. You are not. You can't heal them. You can't save them. I know as empaths, you want to, you feel like you can, you can't. It's something within them. They need to want to save themselves. They need to be able to take care of themselves. You need to save yourself, take care of yourself. You know, put your own oxygen mask on first. Fed up with narcissists walking all over you? Sick of everyone believing their lies while you're paying through the nose in attorney's fees? What if you could hold all the cards for a change? Hey, I'm Rebecca Zung. I'm a top 1% trial attorney, a USA Today bestselling author, and I've spent my entire career helping people slay narcissists in negotiations, most recently through my proven slay method. What if your suffering could become your superpower? Imagine turning all that pain into power, not just for you, but for others too. This is your chance to take back control. You can finally win. Become a high conflict negotiation certified coach. Help others while transforming your own life and do good for the world. This is your chance. Go to RebeccaZung.com/apply and I'll show you how to turn the tables for good starting today. Now, let's talk about what to say to shut down that narcissist in your life. So remember that a narcissist wants to control you. That's how they get their feeling of narcissistic supply. That's what feeds them is, controlling you, intimidating you, making you feel awful, debasing you, sending you into a panic. And if you want to know how to make a narcissist panic, you should definitely check out my video on how to make a narcissist panic. They want to send you into that state of panic. They want you to be the one who's like on the defensive all the time. And I help people negotiate with narcissists, negotiate with toxic personalities, get the edge, get that leverage, figure out how to finally turn those tables, how to finally shift that dynamic and so that you're the one feeling powerful, because they want you to feel like you can never win. They want you to feel like it's never going to end. And they will continue to do that as long as they're getting some sort of narcissistic supply, which is, that smug satisfaction that they're controlling you and getting the edge over you. They're going to continue to be in your life. And that's why some of you have been dealing with these people for years. And, they collect people as forms of supply, like people collect jars of jam or something for the winter. They line them up on the shelves and go, oh, I can get more supply out of this one. I can get more supply out of that one. So as long as they're getting some form of narcissistic supply from you, you're going to continue to have to deal with them. It's like taking that fire and sucking all the oxygen away from it. That's the only way that you'll finally be able to shut them down. So the first way that you can shut down that narcissist is to just say no. And if you want to know more about what happens when you say no to the narcissist, you should definitely check out my video on what happens when you say no to a narcissist, when you just say no. What happens is that the narcissist is so used to controlling you. They've set up this elaborate situation where you feel powerless, where you feel like, oh, I can't ever, get away from this. And it's almost so foreign to you. It's like putting on somebody else's clothes or somebody else's shoes. You're thinking, ugh, I can't, seems so strange to me. What's going to happen? Is the world going to fall apart? Are they going to lose control on me? And if you want to know what happens when a narcissist loses control, check out my video on that. But when you say no to a narcissist, it's you starting to take back your power. It's you starting to say, you know what? This is not okay. I'm going to say no.
I'm not going to do that thing that you think that I should do. I'm not going to be that person that you think that I should be. I'm not going to take the deal that you're offering me. I'm not going to take the, the settlement proposal. I'm going to fight back. I'm going to push back. I'm going to go for what I want. And yeah, maybe there might be some backlash from it, but even if you trigger their narcissistic rage, because you've touched on their narcissistic injury in some way, just remember that the narcissist is always the worst right before they're ready to give up. So just keep moving forward. Keep moving forward. The narcissist is one of the most scared little people on the planet. The not so secret is that you are actually the stronger one. They didn't attach themselves to you because you had no value. They attached themselves to you because you have so much value, because they can get that narcissistic supply from you. So try out just saying no to them for one or two things and see how it goes. The second thing is, I hear you. All people want to feel seen, heard, and know that they matter. And I talk about that in my book, Negotiate Like You Matter. It's actually in my book. Matter is the acronym for how to negotiate, and M actually stands for my value is defined by me. You and you alone define your value. We all want to know that we matter. That's all part of being human. And, in some ways we all have like a narcissist in us, but it's not, we don't use that word, because what narcissism really is when it gets to the pathological stage where, they can't see anybody but themselves, and they can't feel anything for anyone but themselves. And so they're just constantly, doing whatever they can to feel that. So if you say, I hear you, it actually kind of softens them a little bit, and they stop like barking right at you and going right after you, because they feel seen, heard, and they know that they matter. Sometimes it's called narcissistic fluffing, where you fluff up their ego a little bit. You can give them a little compliment or something just to get what you want in exchange for something. But just saying, I hear you, that will help to shut them down. The next thing is saying, I trust you, or I trust that. And it's kind of like what I talk about in my book, which is embedded commands, where you're basically kind of telling them how you feel. I trust that you care about the children. I trust that you want a good settlement. This is all part of what I talk about with ethically manipulating the manipulator. That's a really, really important part of how you get to slaying the narcissist in negotiation. And I talk about my slay methodology in my program, which is slay your negotiation with a narcissist. So strategy, leverage, anticipate, and focus on you. But when you say, I trust you, or I trust that, you're kind of like putting thoughts out there that they can't disagree with. So it helps to shut them down. The next one is say nothing. Just continue to look at them, let them rant, let them rave. Just, put yourself in a situation as if you're watching it in a movie, or you're watching a scene on a stage in a play, or you're watching a 2-year-old have a tantrum on the floor. You're just going, okay, I'm watching you, so you don't say anything. And saying nothing just absolutely drives them crazy, and it helps to shut them down, because eventually there's nothing to fight with. There's no bait. There's nothing more that they can use. And, sometimes it takes a tremendous amount of restraint to do this, but just try it out and see what happens. Just say nothing. And if you are so ready to shut down that narcissist, give me a shut them down in the comments right now. The next one is everything is okay. This, makes them feel like, hey, we're in this together. We're going to figure this out together. It's all right. I mean, you're sort of treating them like a toddler, because they really are like toddlers. They kind of never really grew out of that stage of, the toddler's creed. What's mine is mine. What's yours is mine. Everything is mine. If I want it, it's mine. If, even if I threw it away, it's still mine. But that's the old toddler's creed. In this instance, you're just sort of saying, it's okay, everything's okay, we'll figure this out, you can just calm down, and that's, again, you're not giving them anything to push back on. How can they argue with that? And the last one is my absolute favorite, which is, drum roll please, no contact. Get rid of them. Out. Goodbye. Bye, Felicia. See you later. Hopefully never. Have a nice life, but have it away from me. And that's what I had to do with the narcissists in my life. And thankfully, I haven't had to talk to them for a long time. And hopefully you won't either. Just suck that oxygen away from that fire. Do not give them anything that they can use. Goodbye. Enjoy your life somewhere else away from me. And I have to tell you, from my perspective, what I've had to do as well is stay away from even the people that I know are in those people's lives. It's unfortunate. There were people that I liked. There were people that I would have wanted to stay in touch with, but I cannot have any contact or even contact with their flying monkeys or anyone in their worlds, because my peace of mind, my life is not worth what it would take to be involved with anything to have to do with those narcissists. And I promise you it will get so much better. And I promise you that I've helped so many people get past narcissists by negotiating their way out of those relationships and getting the settlement that you deserve. That's fair. That's equitable. I've been able to turn it around. It's part of karma. It's part of quantum law. You can do this. You can absolutely put your mind to this and get where you want to get. And in this video, I'm also going to give you 8 key phrases to help you shut down those narcissists before they absolutely drive you crazy. All right, so let's get started. The first thing is that you want to understand that they want you want to kind of take yourself out of this situation. So the more you can kind of start looking at it almost like they're toddlers having a tantrum on the floor, the better it's going to be for you. Because what they're trying to do is drag you into that quicksand with them, drag you into that mud with them. And there's a number of reasons that they do that. One is that they get something called narcissistic supply by dragging you into that mud with them. And that feeds them, that feeds their ego, it feeds their inner empty self by doing that. It's kind of like I call it their food, their lifeblood, their oxygen, and that's what they need. It's that inner emptiness that they feel, and by doing that, you're kind of feeding that, and that's why you end up feeling so empty yourself. They call them energy vampires for a reason, and that's part of the reason, because you end up feeling like you're being sucked dry. I remember when I was dealing with a business partner who was a narcissist, before I even knew anything about narcissism, I used to think, my God, it's like a leech. I just feel like I'm being leached. And I didn't know any other language to use, but I just felt drained, sucked dry, like the life was being drained out of me. And that's why you feel that. So you want to understand that you've got to figure out a way to create these boundaries to stop that draining from you, to stop that. So the way you've got to start is, I call it step 1, don't run. Step 2, make a U-turn. And step 3, break free. That step 1 is that first step. It's so important to start to look at things almost as a third party, look at things almost as an observer. And so that, when you're using these phrases, you almost have to take the emotion out of it. All right. So that's the first real step when you're using these phrases. Okay. Look at it as if you're looking at a child having a tantrum. Looking at the narcissist from an observer point of view, and you stop having the emotional reaction. You can go afterwards and scream into your pillow, cry in the shower, talk to your therapist, whoever you need to, and have your emotional reaction afterward. But when you're with them, not have the emotional reaction there, because that feeds them. That is what they are looking for. That is what they want. The next reason that you don't want to have these emotional reactions is because they will use these emotional reactions against you. So not only are you feeding that need for supply, but you're also potentially going to hurt yourself, because what they're trying to do is bait you. What they're trying to do is trigger you, manipulate you, and get you to do something so that they can potentially use your emotional reaction against you. So, and especially if you're in the discard phase of a relationship with the narcissist, they want to be able to go, oh, look, there's the crazy one. There's the emotional one. There's the one that has the problem. And if you're in a court situation, it happens all the time. And I've seen it with my clients. I've seen it with in situations where on the stand, in situations that were extremely inconvenient, cross-examination, trial, depositions, where you don't want it to happen, right? And they're very, very good at that, where they look like they're the calm ones, the collected ones, the charming, charismatic ones. And then everybody else in the system thinks that they're the normal ones, the non-narcissistic ones, the fine ones, the good ones. The other party is made to look like the emotional one, the one with the problem, because they bait you, they trigger you, they make you look like the crazy person. So you want to be very, very careful about not taking that bait and not allowing them to trigger you. Remember, everything you put your hand to is a potential trial exhibit. What you write, what you post on social media, how you respond to those text messages, to those emails, to those direct messages, what you say in conversations, what you say in front of people. Be very, very careful about those things. So that's why, go to disarmthenarc.com and grab my key phrases for disarming narcissists. You definitely want to do that. These are some cautions that I have for you. And then the third reason why you want to be very careful about how you are responding and talking to a narcissist is because every single time you get baited, every single time you get dragged into the mud, that narcissist, as long as you're giving them supply, they're never, ever, ever going to leave you alone. They're never going to be gone, because they're still getting that food. They're still getting that lifeblood. They're still getting that oxygen. So they're still going to come around. 3 good reasons to use these key phrases for shutting down narcissists. Okay. So, number 1, you can say something like, I'm sorry you feel that way. I'm sorry you feel that way. Now, be careful you don't say, I'm sorry, or whatever, unless you are sorry, but you just say, I'm sorry you feel that way. I understand that that's what you think, whatever, but I'm sorry that you feel that way. You're not saying anything really. You're just saying, I'm sorry that that's how you feel. It just basically kind of puts it back on them. That's how you feel. I get it. I'm sorry that's how you feel. And it just lets them know that I heard what you said, and I acknowledge that that's what you said. I'm sorry that that's what you feel. Okay. That's number one. Number two is I have no control over the way you feel. I have no control over what your thoughts are. Again, you're acknowledging what they said. You're acknowledging that you heard what they said about their thoughts. And you're just saying, I have no control over what you think. Not saying that you agree. You're basically saying you don't agree, but that you just don't have any control over what they think, nor do you wish to. Okay. And you have no control over the way you feel about me or this situation or what they think about anything. So that's number two. Number three is your anger is not my responsibility. You can also say your triggers are not my responsibility because a lot of times they are trying to say that they're angry at you, or they might say, you trigger me, you make me angry, all of those things. Their anger about things that you do, or if you trigger them, it's not your responsibility. They have to be responsible for that. Just like if you are triggered about something, it's your responsibility to manage your anger, to manage your triggers, right? Each of us have to manage our own triggers, our own traumas, our own anger. That's our own responsibility to deal with, right? I mean, we have a choice about how we respond to situations, and that's on us. And so that's on them. And so you can just put that back on them. Your anger is not my responsibility. That's number three. Number four. Number four is one of my favorites. I love this one. Number four is I agree. That's your opinion. Because you know what? You're basically not agreeing with a thing. But they often hear you say, I agree. So you're saying, I agree. That's what you think. I agree that I heard you say that. You aren't agreeing with a thing, but I agree that's what you said. I agree that's your opinion. I mean, I understand that that's what you feel. You can say things like that, that basically you're just acknowledging them, but you're not agreeing with the thing. I hear you. I agree that that's what you feel. I understand. Things like that are all just acknowledging, but not really anything at all. Okay. Validating in some way. And that's really a lot of times all that people want. Number five is I can see that you are. And you just insert the emotion. I can see that you are upset. I can see that you are angry. I can see that you are sad. Whatever it is, just articulate whatever the emotion is that you see them feeling. A lot of times, what's crazy is that you'll say, I can see that you're angry. And they'll say, I'm not angry. How is it that you're feeling? Because they'll be raging. And you'll say, I can see that you are angry about this. I'm not angry. Or they'll be screaming, yelling. I can see that this is upsetting to you. I'm not upset. Because when you call them out on their behavior, they'll be like, oh, I'm not that. They don't want you to characterize their behavior in such a way. It's just kind of funny. But actually observe their behavior to them. That's number five. If you are so ready to slay, you all of this, slay your communication, slay your negotiations. That's what we do here. We slay strategy, leverage, anticipate, be 2 steps ahead of them, and focus on you, your case, your position, and slay everything with narcissists. I want you to put slay in the comments right now, because that is what you are going to do. You are going to slay this. You're going to slay this. You're going to shut them down. Put slay in the comments right now, because you can do this. You can shut them down. Put slay in the comments right now. All right. Number 6. Number 6 is another one that you can do. It's like, that's an interesting perspective. That's an interesting perspective. Again, you're just kind of acknowledging. I can't tell you how many times, hundreds of times a day, I get emails from people that, they're like, you know what? I just pulled out your phrases for shutting down narcissists. I picked one and I emailed it back and it totally worked. Or I have a few memorized and I just pulled one out, used it, totally worked. So totally suggest that you do this. That's an interesting perspective. So that's number 6. And number 7, here's where you're going to really start to create some boundaries. All right. If you want a narcissist respect, start feeling the power. They respect people who stand up to them, who have some confidence. All right. Start to say things like, if you want to engage in a conversation with me, you're going to have to remain calm and not emotional. Or say something like, be factual, not emotional. You're going to have to speak to me in a way that's respectful. There's certain things that are negotiable. Contracts, issues, and terms. There's certain things that are not negotiable, and that's your self-respect. That's your self-worth. So don't allow them to speak to you in a way that's not respectful. Okay? All right. So if you want to engage in a conversation with me, you're going to have to remain calm. You're going to have to speak to me in a way that's respectful. Just say something like that. Totally okay. And it's totally okay for you to go, okay, well, you know what? If you can't, then this conversation is over. Period. And finally, the last one, if they say something that's just absolutely nuclear, not okay, you can just say, I'm choosing not to respond to that. And that's okay too. You know what? I'm choosing not to respond to that. Don't defend yourself. Okay. When you defend yourself, you are giving credence to the other side. You're giving credence to their position. You make yourself look weaker. Never explain, justify, or overshare. It seems like every celebrity has access to GLP-1s these days, but what about the rest of us? Now you don't need to be rich or famous to access personalized, tailored weight loss solutions just for you. Through Hers, you can take control of your health. Hers is changing women's healthcare by providing access to holistic weight loss solutions, including GLP-1 treatments, with the same active ingredients as Ozempic and Wegovy, oral medication kits, and more. You'll connect with a medical provider who will develop a plan based on your needs. And if prescribed, your medication is included as part of a doctor-designed weight loss program, complete with ongoing care, online support, all at no additional cost. Plans start at just $199 a month with a 12-month subscription, paid up front, and your treatment ships directly to your door. So if you've been struggling with weight loss and you want to find the right solution just for you, start your free online visit today at forhers.com/negotiate. That's forhers.com/negotiate for your personalized weight loss treatment options. Hers is not available everywhere. Compounded programs are not FDA approved or verified for safety, effectiveness, or quality. Prescription required, restrictions apply. Wegovy and Ozempic are not compounded. Okay, so let's talk about those phrases that to shut down narcissists, that silence them and get them to stop with what they're doing with you. All right, so the first one may surprise you actually, and that is, I agree with you.
Sometimes you can just say, I agree with you, and you're not actually really even agreeing with them. You can even say things like, I agree that that's what you think. I agree that that's your perception. I agree that that's what you just said. You don't even have to say anything. You're really not even agreeing with anything, but you can just say, I agree with you. And you do have to be careful sometimes if you're going to agree with them. And you could say, yep, I agree. I'm a terrible mother, or I agree, I'm awful in business, or something like that. You just have to be careful that you don't agree with things like that that could potentially hurt you down the road. You certainly definitely don't want to agree to any of these things in writing that will, because remember, every writing is a potential trial exhibit. Everything you put your hand to. Just a little side note, little tip there for you. So, just remember that narcissists are using certain phrases to manipulate you all the time. And so there's a way that you can kind of ethically manipulate the manipulator by shifting it around. And if you do want to know more about phrases that narcissists use to manipulate you, definitely check out my video on that topic. So, number one is, I agree with you. Number two is, I'm sorry that that's what you think. You basically, it's sort of the same kind of principle as I agree with you. You're not really saying you're sorry. You're saying, I'm sorry that's what you think. I'm sorry that's what you believe. I'm sorry that we are in this situation. I'm sorry that this happened. I'm sorry that we aren't able to agree on anything. I'm sorry that we seem to be so far apart in our positions. Just both I agree with you and I'm sorry are just sort of ways that kind of disarm them. They're thrown off by that just a little bit, and it also gives them some of that adulation that they desperately need because they're always, on the hunt for that narcissistic supply. So those are the first two. I agree with you, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry that's what you think. I'm sorry that we're here. So that's number two. Number three is, you have every right to your opinions. Again, you're kind of taking yourself out of this situation. You want to start to get to a place where you're not engaged, where you're not triggered, where you're not emotionally pulled into this thing. Narcissists are trying really hard to trigger you, especially in negotiations, because then they want to try to get you. Negotiating with a narcissist is like getting arrested. Everything you say and do will definitely be used against you. So you want to make sure that you are disengaging and putting yourself in a place where you're just almost kind of observing the situation. And by saying things like, you have a right to your opinion, you're almost taking yourself out of the situation and just observing them. So that's number three. Number four is in that same vein as far as the emotional side of things. It's, I can see that you are, and then insert whatever it is. You are observing them. I can see that you are angry. I can see that you are frustrated. I can see that you are upset. By doing this, you are actually acknowledging their feelings, that which they want. They want to be the center of attention. And it also helps you because you are now starting to disengage. You are observing the situation. And the more you can do that, as I said, the more power you will have. The more emotionally charged you are, the less power you have, the less leverage you have. Remember, you're trying to create leverage in this situation. And if you want to know more about creating leverage in negotiations with narcissists, definitely check out my video on that topic as well. But, sometimes you'll even start to see them break down. You'll start to see them collapse. And, that will actually start to help you. The more you start to silence them, the more you start to shut them down, the less control they'll have and the more mistakes they will actually start to make. Okay. So the next one is, if you want to talk now, then I will insist that you are calm and respectful. I mean, that's really, really important that you are setting those boundaries, that you are making sure you're drawing a line in the sand. And by the way, if you are so ready to set boundaries, give me a set boundaries in the comments below. Just write set boundaries so that you can remind yourself that that's what you're starting to do here, that you're starting to disengage. So, you can say, I'm willing to negotiate a contract with you. I'm willing to negotiate this deal with you, but there are certain things that are just not negotiable. And my self-respect, that ain't negotiable. Okay, so set boundaries, right? Okay, next one is, I believe that's how you feel. So again, you're saying, I believe you. I believe that's how you feel. I believe that's your perception. I believe that's your position. I believe that that's what you think happened. All of those things are acknowledging what they're saying, but you're not really doing anything. So, but it helps to silence them. It helps to shut them down because they don't know what to do with that. They know what to do with pushing against you, because then they can push back and they can manipulate back and they can do underhanded things. And that's what they want. They want to drag you down into that mud with them. So the next one is, that's an interesting perspective. You're not saying anything with that other than, I heard that you said words, right? It's like, that's an interesting perspective. Okay, that's what you said. Got it. All right, so that's the next one. And the next one is, this approach or this conversation is not working for me. And so, and I have said that. I mean, I said that to a lawyer one time who wanted me to become a partner in his particular firm. And I was like, listen, I really like you and I love your practice and your partners or whatever, but this situation is not working for me. This situation is not going to work for me. And, there's really nothing you can say back to that. I mean, you're not accusing the other person of doing anything. You're not saying you are wrong for me. You're saying the situation doesn't work for me. And again, or the approach doesn't work for me, or this conversation is not working for me. Again, keeping your self-respect, your dignity, your self-worth right up here, right at the forefront. Those things are not negotiable. Certain things are negotiable. Those are not negotiable. So those are the 8 phrases that I have for you that will silence those narcissists. They won't know what to do with it. It will wobble them. It will take them off their game. And it'll help you actually feel much more powerful in the negotiations.
You're dealing with that narcissist. They're driving you crazy. They're driving you insane. They're making you feel miserable, powerless, paralyzed. They enjoy watching you sweat. They enjoy making your life miserable. What can you do to stop them right in their tracks? It's so hard sometimes because you feel like right in your face, they do whatever they can to trigger you. They go out of their way to carefully and perfectly curate things to say to you so that you are feeling crazy or that you're triggered. Back in the video that I did, Narcissists Care a Lot, you can definitely check that out.
I am a lioness.
I talked about that show, I Care a Lot, with Rosamund Pike. It was such a perfect example of what happens when you get triggered. So she was sitting there talking to this older woman in the nursing home, and she saw the camera there. She knew that she was going to be able to trigger this woman. So she sat there and she said things over and over and over again to her, like, you're an old woman, you're crazy, you're this, you're that. And the old woman got so triggered that she stood up and actually started choking her. And then what did the narcissist do? She went right into court and used it. Look, she's crazy. And that's what often happens when you're dealing with narcissists in a negotiation setting. They goad you and trigger you so much that you end up making mistakes. You end up doing things that now you have to undo, and you dig your own hole more because they've triggered you. And that's what they want to do. Dealing with a narcissist is like getting arrested. Have you ever heard that one? Yeah, it's whatever you do or say is definitely going to be used against you. So You got to be really, really careful about not being triggered. And in that video that I just referenced, Care a Lot or Narcissist Care a Lot that I did, I have a whole lot of ideas for you on not getting triggered. So definitely check that out. Okay, so dealing with a narcissist, and you really, really want to make sure that you're not triggered, and you want to shut them down. You want to stop them in their tracks. You want to disarm them. So how do you go ahead and do that? So the very first way that you can do that, the first thing that you can say is, you're right. Because now you're basically just taking away their power. You know, it's sort of like when you push against something, when you push against your hand and the other person is pushing, 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 but then you let go and then the other hand just flies to the side. That's what happens. So you just say, you're right. You know, you're right. I'm worthless. You're right. I'm terrible. You're right. I'm the one that caused all the problems. You're right this, you're right that, whatever. And, you know, then they might start to get mad, like, oh, now you're patronizing me or this, that, and the other. They're going to try to keep you getting into the mud with them. But just say, no, I really think you're right. Yep. So that's definitely one way that you can just start to, you know, shut them down a little bit. The next thing that you can do is you can say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I upset you. I'm sorry it seems to be that you're very angry. I'm sorry that we're having issues. I'm sorry that there are words between us. I'm sorry I didn't say the right thing. Whatever you want to say, you don't necessarily have to say, I'm sorry, like there's something wrong with you, but you could even say, I'm sorry that you're so upset. You know, you could even like observe that to them. Like, I can see that you're upset. I can see that you're angry. Just observe them. So another thing that you can do is just, you know, without emotion or without any kind of issues, just, you know, without feeling triggered, just say, I don't want to have this argument anymore. I'm not going to argue with you. I'm not going to allow you to disrespect me. I can have this conversation with you when you are ready to have a conversation that is rational. So that's the next thing that you can say is, I don't want to argue with you, or I'm not going to argue with you. Okay? So another thing that you can do is say something to them like, I can see where you might think that. I mean, even if you don't think that, well, I can see that. Or I can see that that's your perception, or I can accept that that's your perception of me. You're not admitting to anything at that point. You're just saying, I can see that. Okay, fine. So that's another way that you can do it. And if you are so ready to stop them in their tracks, give me a stop them in their tracks in the comments right now. Okay, so the next thing that you can say to them to shut them down is, thank you. Thank you for letting me know. Thank you for sharing your opinion. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. You don't have to say, I agree with you, you're right. You don't even have to say any of those other things. You can just say thank you. Because what are they going to say to thank you, right? I mean, they'll be like, thank you for what? You know, I mean, they'll try to continue to get you down in the mud with them, right? But then you're just both rolling around in mud, you know? Neither of you are getting anywhere with that. So by staying away from being triggered like that and just, you know, making observations, you know, I always say just the facts, ma'am, or sir, you know, never explain, justify, or overshare. Don't try to get, you know, defensive. Don't try to get them to see the error of their ways. They're never going to come to any of that. So you might as well give up on that idea, all right? So what's the last one leading up to the drum roll of the last one? It is say nothing. Just say nothing at all. Don't respond. Just walk away. Go gray rock. You know, stick to your boundaries. Walk away from them. And by the way, if you want to know what the difference is between ghosting, silent treatment, and having boundaries, check out my video on that topic as well. But the last thing you can do is just say nothing at all. Just walk away and just say, you know, I'm having my life, you know, namaste and walk away. That's one of my favorite little sayings. Namaste and walk away.
wish you well, but I wish you well over there. Like that's what I say about the narcissists that were in my life. I wish them well, but I wish them well over there, away from me, not in my space anymore. I'm done with that.
I'll admit it, I'm that person. I'm the one the night before a birthday, an anniversary, or any kind of special occasion, I'm frantically searching the aisles for the right card and one that doesn't seem kind of corny or cringeworthy. You know the struggle, right? But then I found Moonpig. It's a total game changer. They have tons of adorable, funny, even heartfelt designs ready to go, and you can even personalize them, which is super cool. You can even upload your favorite photos or tweak the text to make it uniquely you. And they'll even suggest clever messages if you're feeling stuck. Oh, and no more forgetting birthdays or scrambling for addresses. Moonpig lets you save everything in one place and even sends you reminders. Plus, they've got the opportunity to upload gift cards from all your favorite places like Sephora or Starbucks, so you can really nail that perfect gift vibe. Once you've designed your card, they'll even mail it for you, or if you want to hand deliver it, they'll send it to you with a cool envelope. So guess what? This is your chance. Your first card is totally free. Just use the code FREE and go to moonpig.com/US/negotiate. Seriously, stop stressing and start impressing. Make someone's day with Moonpig. Try it right now. 10 phrases to shut down those narcissists. All right, so number one is, I can see that you are upset. I like this one because you're just observing to them. I also like this one because it also helps you to kind of divorce yourself from it, step away from it, so that you can sort of breathe and put a little bit of space between you and that emotion, so that you are just kind of like looking at it, you're just observing it as if you are now a third party observer. Like it's just something that you are seeing, but you're not actually engaging in it. And it's not really part of you. It's just something that you're watching. I can see that you are upset. I can see that this is something that you are angry about. I can see that maybe this is something that we need to talk about later when you are more calm. So it is a great way for you to also step back, but it is also a way to shut them down in that moment. So that's number one. Number two is a way to take it so that they don't feel so like isolated, because narcissists don't want to feel called out. So number two is, we can both work together on this. Now, I know what you're thinking. I don't want to work together with the narcissist on this. I know you don't want to, but all I'm saying is they don't want to feel called out. So sometimes you have to make them feel like we're all together and we're on the same side and we're doing this together, so that they don't feel like they're being called out. Even if you're not necessarily doing this, remember what I always say: ethically manipulating the manipulator. So even if you don't feel like it, sometimes you have to take your ego out of it, and you can say things like, we're working together on this, just so that they feel like they're not being called out on this. Okay, so that's number two. We can both work together on this, so they feel like it's a we instead of a you. Right, so that's number two. Number three is, I hear you. Hey, all people want to feel seen, heard, and know that they matter, but narcissists especially. What do they need more than anything? They want to feel like adulation. So sometimes you got to do what you got to do to give them that. And, I call it bartering. Sometimes you hear it because, being called like narcissistic fluffing. You got to fluff up their ego a little bit, like you're fluffing up a pillow. I always say you don't do this all the time. And you have to be doing this strategically, because I know some of you have given and given, like you got nothing left of yourself to give.
So you have to make a choice where you're only doing this, where you're saying, I'm making a decision to do this because I'm going to do this right now in order to get something in return. So sometimes you need to say, I hear you in that moment because you are going to get something in return at that moment as well. And this is especially true when you are in a negotiations setting for sure. All right, so that's number 3. Number 4. I like this one too, because especially when the emotions get high and intense and red hot, how do you calm them down? You can say things like, I have no right to control how you see me. Okay, fine. You can say whatever you want about me. I have no right to control how you see me. You know, the old sticks and stones can break my bones. You can say whatever you want. I have no right to control how you see me. So you can say whatever. And it's great because they're starting to recognize at that point that you're not going to be moved by how they perceive you or the things that they say about you. You can say that I have no control how you see me or the things that you say. And that will kind of shut them down because they're starting to realize that they're not getting an emotional rise out of you, which is the thing that they want more than anything, because that's the payoff for them. When you get upset, that gives them narcissistic supply, and then that's the payoff that they want. Okay, so when you don't give them that, then they don't get that payoff. So that's number 4. Number 5, I'm not upset with you. Again, you're shutting them down because you're not giving them that supply. That is also a way to shut them down. Anytime you are cutting off that supply source, that's when you are starting to shut them down, because that's their food, that's their oxygen, that's their lifeblood. And they're always trying to say things to trigger you, to try to get that supply out of you, to try to get that rise out of you, to try to rile you up. And if you want to know more about the kinds of things that they say, you can definitely check out my video called Narcissist Favorite Catchphrases, because there's a lot of things that they say to try to get you riled up. All right. Number 6 is your approach is not working for me. You know, the kinds of things that you're saying, the kinds of things that you're doing. If you're trying to get something from me here, if whatever it is that you're trying to get me to do, you know, it's not working for me. So, you know, you're not going to be getting what you want from me. So perhaps you might want to try a different approach. So that's number 6. Number 7 is you can disagree with me, but you have no right to disrespect me. I like this. I used to have to say this kind of thing to opposing counsel sometimes when I was litigating on a regular basis. Like, we can disagree without being disagreeable. You can disagree with me, but we don't have to be disrespectful. We can disagree, but perhaps we just need to take this up with the judge. You know, I mean, I used to have to say this kind of thing to other lawyers. But, you know, when you're dealing with narcissists, they love to go low. They love to do the low blow thing. They love to make it personal right away. And it's up to you to set that standard, to set that bar, because they're not going to do it. You have to do it. I mean, you don't get your goals. You set your standards. You do. And, you know, they start treating you based on how you've allowed them. I mean, you know, they've conditioned you to a certain extent. And so you have to kind of recondition them based on how you're going to allow yourself to be treated. So just decide, you know, hey, you can disagree with me, but you don't have the right to disrespect me. So I want you to start right now by writing respect me in the comments below. That's where you're going to start. Number 8 is what you are saying does not align with the facts. What you are saying does not align with the facts. I don't think I need to say anything more with that, right? You mean sometimes they don't even necessarily care because narcissists just lie. Sometimes they lie about things that are readily verifiable and things they don't even necessarily need to lie about, which is pretty crazy to me. Next one is I agree with you. I love this one because you can even agree with things that aren't even necessarily where you're agreeing. Like you can say, I agree with you that we are never going to agree. I agree with you that that's your opinion. I agree with you that that's what you think. I agree with you that that's what you believe. So that is number 9. And number 10 is goodbye. Number 10 is I'm walking away. Number 10 is see ya later or never. You know, that's really the best one, honestly. I mean, when you can get to a point where you are not ever having to talk to this person ever again in your life and you can really shut them down completely, that's really the best, honestly. I mean, not everybody can get to that point. There are times in your life when you do have to continue to have this person in your life. You know, I get that because of, you know, children or family, or maybe, you know, there is a business or there is, you know, stuff that's going on in your life that it's impossible to completely walk away. I'm going to count from 5 to 1 because I want to give you the best one last. Oh, yes, I'm saving the best one for last. So, number 5, we're going to start with number 5. Number 5 is I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You start with I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you don't understand. I'm sorry that we can't agree. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You know, you just say I'm sorry because it's a disarming phrase. Now be careful because remember that anything you put your hand to is a trial exhibit, and you don't want to be apologizing for things and then make it look like you're actually saying something that you did something wrong. What you're doing is you're disarming. You're disarming. Remember, you're shutting down this narcissist, you're disarming the narcissist, you're reclaiming your control. Sometimes you can just say, I'm sorry that we don't seem to be on the same page. It seems that there's a misunderstanding here. I'm sorry that it seems that you're upset, and perhaps we need to continue this conversation another day. You can even say, I'm sorry, it seems that I maybe didn't explain this to you properly, and we can't continue this now. Whatever it is that you need to say, it's a disarming phrase. It's something that they're not going to say unless it's a manipulation, because everything they do is a manipulation. So, number 5 is I'm sorry. It's just a way to shut them down, disarm them. Number 5, I'm sorry. Number 4 is we can resume this conversation when you're ready to respect me, because do not sit and have a conversation with anybody when they're being disrespectful to you. If they're screaming at you, if they're yelling at you, if they're being derogatory toward you, if they are saying things that are, you know, not productive, you don't have to sit there and have a conversation. You're not getting anywhere with it anyway. So you can just say, we can resume this conversation when you're ready to be respectful. And then excuse yourself. You know, here's the one thing that I say all the time. There are certain things that are negotiable and there are certain things that are not. Terms of contracts are negotiable. Your self-worth, not. Your self-respect, not. Ever. So you can always resume conversations when the person is ready to be respectful. And you don't have to yell, and you don't have to scream, and you don't even have to say it with emotion. You don't have to say, we can resume this when you're ready to be respectful. You don't have to be like that. Okay? You don't have to respond in kind. You just say, we can resume this conversation when you can be respectful. Thank you.
and then nicely get up and walk away. Okay. And if they say, don't walk away from me, that's not respectful, blah, 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 you know, whatever it is, you just say, oh, that's not respectful. Thank you. And that's it. If you agree, put respect me in the comments right now. I want you to put that in the comments right now. Respect me, because I want you to remember that that's one of the most important things in any relationship, is to demand respect of yourself. And that's an okay thing. That's not only an okay thing, this should be a non-starter. Okay, it should be a non-starter. Number 3 is I agree. And again, this is something you got to be very careful with what you're doing, because remember, everything is a potential trial exhibit. So you can say things like, I agree with that that's what you believe. I agree that that's what you think. I agree that we disagree. I agree that that's your perspective. You know, in other words, you're not agreeing with anything. You're just agreeing that that's what they think, you know, but just hearing the words, I agree, is just sort of like a salve for people. It's sort of like music to their ears. So when you say I agree, it's sort of like, okay, they hear I agree. So that's number 3. I agree. Number 4 or number 2, you know, I'm working my way up. So whether it's number 4 or number 2, depending on how you're like looking at it, is no. Just no, because that will definitely shut them down, especially if they're used to you saying yes, especially if they're used to you going along to get along, because that happens a lot of times when you're in these relationships. I know, I've been there too, but then you end up regretting it, la, 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 you know, I know how it is, right? That one is the next one. It's just no, especially if, you know, you just really don't want to do that thing or whatever. Just say no. Just say no, like the old drug campaign. Just say no. All right, ready? You ready for that last one? Are you so ready to find out what that last one is? A good one. I told you it's a good one. This is the most important one. This will definitely shut down that narcissist. This is definitely going to help you reclaim that control. This is definitely going to help you disarm them. They hate this word in a lot of ways, actually. Whatever. This is literally the one word that narcissists absolutely cannot. And I want to give you everything that you need to finally power through and break free from that narcissist. It's just so exhausting. And they make you feel small. They make you feel like you're going crazy. They make you feel paralyzed. I know that feeling. They literally suck the energy out of you. And especially the ones that are like, you know, really, really good at it. The covert narcissists are the ones that are really good at it, you know, where they have something that we call plausible deniability, which means that they have this ability to literally do things where everybody else in the world thinks that they're amazing, wonderful, good human beings, and they can keep themselves looking pristine, perfect, not a hair touched on their head. So when you go to tell people what they've done, everyone else goes, I don't know, that doesn't seem so bad. Or maybe you're blowing it out of proportion. Or maybe that was inadvertent. You know, they seem like such a good person. They seem so nice. So you end up seeming like you're the crazy one, or you're contributing to it too, or they spin it around so that they seem like they're the calm ones and you're the ones out of control. And they do this so that the marriage counselors are on board with this plan too. I mean, it is unbelievable how good they are at this. So if you really want to be able to spin this around, you really want to be able to stop this craziness, you want to be able to disarm the narc. And by the way, I've got a whole download that goes with this. Go to disarmthenarc.com so that you can get your own download
that goes with this. Get your own phrases. So you don't even need to make sure you write all this down, because I'm going to just give it to you. Just go to disarmthenarc.com so that you can just download it. All right. So here are your 20 phrases. Ready? Number 1, I'm not going to tolerate your behavior. I'm not going to tolerate your behavior. You can just say that, and you don't need to scream it, and you don't need to yell it, and you don't need to say it in any sort of fashion. You don't need to have tone. If they're screaming, they're yelling, they're saying things that are in any way, you're not feeling good about it, you just need to say, I'm not going to tolerate your behavior. Here's something that I'm going to say to you. There's certain things that are negotiable, and there's certain things that are not. Here's what's negotiable: terms of contracts. Here's what's not negotiable: your self-respect. So, you can just say, I'm not going to tolerate your behavior. So that's number 1. Number 2, you can say, I'm not going to allow you to speak to me that way. If you're not feeling comfortable with it, they're speaking to you in a way where they're degrading you, they're talking down to you, they're disrespecting you, they're yelling at you, you can just say, I'm not going to allow you to speak to me that way. And you don't have to. That's the beautiful thing. Nobody is holding you hostage. You can get up, you can walk away. And even if they yell, you don't get up, don't walk away, it's okay. It really is okay, because you have your self-respect. So you can just say, I'm not going to allow you to speak to me that way. And you don't have to. So that's number 2. Number 3 is, I'm not going to let you treat me like this. Again, I'm telling you right now that narcissists, the people that they respect the most, are the people who don't allow them to treat however they want. You will start to see a shift in how they treat you. They may scream, they may yell, they may act like they don't like it, but you will start to see little shifts in their behavior. You have been conditioned by them, and you need to start conditioning them back. So when you start to say, I'm not going to tolerate your behavior, I'm not going to allow you to speak to me that way, and I'm not going to allow you to treat me like this, things will start to change. The next one is, I deserve to be treated with respect. So you're drawing a line. You're saying, I deserve to be treated with respect, and you're letting them know there's a new game in town. Things are different now. I give people a 3-step process. Step 1, don't run. Step 2, make a U-turn. Step 3, break free. You're no longer walking backwards. You're pivoting. You're walking forward now. And as you're making that pivot, you're going to start to present your offers. You're going to start to speak. You're going to start to stand up for yourself. And as this process unfolds incrementally, step 3, you're going to start to break free. Number 5, you need to stop this immediately. When you start to create boundaries, that's when they start to realize that there's a new game in town. So in that vein, you're no longer saying you can contact me in 57 different ways. You're saying you only get to contact me in one way. Maybe it's just through text message. Maybe it's just through email. Email is the best, by the way. There's a time and date stamp. Everything is documented the right way. You need to stop this immediately, number 5. Number 6, I'm warning you, if you don't stop, I will take action. Is it a threat? Yes. But you are going to follow through with it. What kind of action? Who knows? You may call your attorney. You may call the police. You may leave. Who knows what that action is? But action means action. You need to follow through with your action. Whatever that is, you've got to follow through with it. Because if you don't, they will never believe you ever again. That's number 6. Number 7, this has to stop now. If it doesn't, what are you going to do about it? Number 8, I'm not going to put up with this anymore. And if it doesn't stop, what are you going to do about it? Number 9 is similar. Enough is enough. You know, when things aren't happening the way you want them to, what are you going to do about it? The next one is, I can see that you're upset. I like when you can start to observe their behavior. I like when you can start to take yourself out of it and just start to watch them, because that will help you no longer be baited by them. The more you can start to do that, the less you will be dragged into their conversation, the less you will feel like you're sucked into that vortex of insanity. The next one is, you're out of line. You're just letting them know you are not in a place that I feel comfortable. So that's number 10. And number 12 is, you're crossing the line. Number 12 is, you're letting them know that you had set a boundary and they're no longer on the other side of that boundary. You're crossing the line. You're crossing the line that I have set for you. So I'm not allowing you to pass that line. Number 13 is, you're pushing your luck. You're pushing your luck. Number 14 is, you've pushed me too far. You've pushed me too far. Number 15 is, if you don't back off, I'm going to take action. And again, I want you to actually take action. I want you to actually take a look at the options that you have and actually take action based on the options that you have, you know, whatever they are. So, you know, if you're in a court case, then you can take a look at the cases that, you know, the options that you have in your situation. But, you know, if you don't have a court case, then, you know, take a look at whatever your you know, your options are. But, you know, just take a look at, should you file a motion? Should you, you know, leave, or whatever it is that you have, you know, your options are. The next one is, you might want to consider. So in other words, you are just saying something to them about what they may want to consider based on what's happening in front of them at that moment. The next one is, you have every right to your opinion. It's fine that they have their opinion, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's your opinion, which is fine. And then the next one is, that's an interesting perspective. You're just observing, again, their behavior. That's an interesting perspective. And I love that one because it's observing what it is that they said. You're not getting involved with whatever it is that they said. You're just saying, that's an interesting perspective. And it just keeps things neutral. The next one is, your anger is not my responsibility. Because a lot of times they want to say, you made me angry. This happened because of you. And this pushes it back on them and says, hey, you are angry. Your anger is not my responsibility. You know, just the same as if you're angry, their anger is not your responsibility. Somebody can choose to get angry or choose to stay calm. Nobody's anger is anybody else's responsibility but their own. You know, how you choose to respond to a situation is everybody's own responsibility, own choice. And that is such an eye-opening thought. It really is very eye-opening about anger. And the last one is one of my favorites, which is, I agree with you. Now, you got to be careful with this one because you don't want to say, I agree with you that I'm a horrible mother or a deadbeat dad. But I like to say, I agree with you on certain things, because you can say, I agree with you that that's your perspective. I agree with you that that's what you think. Because, you know, it's a way to kind of calm somebody down in a way, because you're saying, I agree with you, but in a way, you're saying you're not agreeing to anything.
And I love being able to do that. I love being able to say, I agree with you and agreeing to nothing. It's kind of a trick. In a way, it's ethically manipulating the manipulator because you're actually saying, I agree, and you're agreeing to zero. So I'm just going to throw in a couple more for you just for fun, to say that you have a few more. A few others are okay, and you just say nothing. You just acknowledge that they spoke, and take no bait. You just say okay, and like the less you say, the more they just want you to say more, and you've said nothing. You say, okay. Another one you can say is using we phrases, like we can fix this or we can work on this, because that kind of diffuses situations as well. Another thing that you can say is I hear you, because I hear you just acknowledges that you're hearing them, and that makes people feel better because you're acknowledging them. It acknowledges what people are saying, and you're not defending yourself and you're not fighting back. You're just acknowledging what somebody is saying. So it's a good thing to do sometimes. And you can also say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that's what you think. I'm sorry that's how this is going. I mean, it's not really saying I'm sorry at all. You're just saying, I'm sorry that's what you think. Or the other one you could do is what I hear you saying, and then just sort of repeat what they say. Here are 10 phrases that stop narcissists. All right. Number one is I agree with you. I agree with you. This is one of my favorite ones. This is one of my favorite ones because it will actually tell you how to, basically shut down a narcissist and stop that narcissist in a way that's basically, I know you're saying, I agree with you. And you're like, what? Hear me out on this. What the rest of your sentence is going to be, I agree with you that we can agree. I agree with you that that's what you think. You just have to be careful that you're not going to say, I agree with you that obviously that I'm a deadbeat mom or whatever. But you can say, I agree that that's your opinion. I agree that that's what you think. You're basically agreeing with nothing. They hear I agree, and it just stops them, because what else are they going to say at that point? Our empathic nature is to want to feel things. We want to give vulnerably. We want to be in conversation. We want to have resolutions to things. You're not getting that. So that's the first thing that you need to understand here. You're not going to get a narcissist to acknowledge you. You're not going to get closure. You're not going to get them to see your side. But what you can do is start to have boundaries. What you can do is start to have protection of you, protection of your feelings, protection of the toxicity. And that's what you need to start doing. One of the things I say is step 1, don't run. Step 2, make a U-turn. Step 3, break free. So that first step of don't run, that's where you're creating those boundaries. That's where you're starting to say, I need to put up some walls here. I need to start having some place here where I'm not having all this toxicity in my space anymore. Okay. So I agree with you that that's what you think, but you're having a boundary there. And also, if you go to disarmthenarc.com, you can there's some of these, but there's also more free phrases for disarming narcissists that will help you so much. So just go to disarmthenarc.com and you'll get free phrases for disarming narcissists. My gift to you. I'm not going to argue with you. That's number 2. I'm not going to argue with you. And if you just say that, I'm not going to argue with you, what can they do? I'm not going to argue with you. In other words, if somebody's pushing on you and you're not pushing back, you just take it away. It just falls away. I'm not going to argue with you. They're looking for that supply. They're trying to bait you. They want that. They need that. That's their food. It's their lifeblood. It's their oxygen. And if you're not giving it to them, then there's nothing they can do, right? I'm not going to argue with you. That's number 2. Number 3 is I can see that you're upset. You're starting to take yourself out of the equation and starting to look at it as if you are a third party. That helps you so much. I just recently heard it referred to as go to the balcony or something like that. You're taking yourself out of it. You're like getting a breath of fresh air. You're breathing. You're going outside. You're taking a look at it. You're surveying. You're looking down at the lawn. I can see that you're upset. You're just looking at them. It's like looking at a 2-year-old that's having a tantrum on the floor. Okay. I can see that you're upset. Just observing them. Number 4 is I hear you. A lot of times they just want to be heard. They just want to be seen, heard, and understood, just like all of us do, but narcissists like so much more so than others. Okay. So I hear you, and it just stops them. Number 5 is just say, thanks for the feedback, trying to bait you into saying something. I saw that you did this and you can't be doing that. And you're this type of a person. Just, oh, okay. Thanks for the feedback. Like if you go, what? I'm what? That like feeds it. You don't defend yourself when it comes to narcissists. It just gives them credence. It just feeds it. Even when they file motions in the court, it's not evidence. Number 6 is that's an interesting perspective. It's again, like, thanks for the feedback. It just stops them because there's nowhere else to go with that. Number 7 is once you've created boundaries, then you can say, I'm going to have to ask you to respect my boundaries. It gets you a little bit more. You're pushing back a little bit more. It may feel unfamiliar. It's unfamiliar to them too, but it's good for you. It's good to stand up. Number 8, your approach is not working for me. Oh, I love that one. I love using it, and I love hearing it when people have used it. This approach is not working for me. I've used it myself when I've been practicing law. This is not working for me, this approach, especially if somebody's extremely aggressive. I've used it in negotiations. Number 9 is just say, okay. You know, especially if they say something that they think is going to be extremely inflammatory. I want a divorce, or I want just say, oh, okay. And then what are they going to do? I'm cutting you off financially. Okay. You know, when they throw out these threats or whatever, and you just say, okay, there's nothing else more than they can say. There's no more threat there. There's no more leverage. And by the way, which ones are you liking, guys, so far? I want to know in the comments. Let me know which one is your favorite so far. And if these are sounding good, I want you to say that too. Say sounds good in the comments. And number 10 is, if we're going to continue to communicate, I'm going to have to ask you to speak to me in a way that's respectful. You're going to have to be respectful. Be respectful. Nobody can argue with that. And if they do, then you can get up and walk away. Nobody has the right to speak to you in a way that's disrespectful. I always say, you know what's negotiable? Contracts, issues, terms. You know what's not negotiable? Your self-respect, your self-esteem, who you are.